Thank you for joining us here today to celebrate Rohit Sarin's book, Unlocking Wealth. I'm going to make a very few brief introductory remarks about the book and about Rohit, of course. Unlocking Wealth by Rohit Sarin is a book that truly breaks down the complex world of wealth generation into accessible, actionable steps. What makes this book stand out is not only the content, which is of course excellent, but the expertise behind it. Rohit Sarin is uniquely qualified to write this book, as I'm sure all of us here already know. He's a seasoned wealth advisor with over 25 years of experience, helping individuals and businesses grow their financial portfolios. His insights come from a wealth of real-world experience, having witnessed firsthand the challenges and the opportunities in today's financial landscape. Unlocking Wealth demystifies the process of wealth creation and wealth management. But it's not just about getting rich. It's about understanding why wealth is essential, both for individual dignity and societal growth. In a culture where wealth building is often seen as greed, this book repositions it as a necessary tool for progress and upliftment, not just of an individual, but of societies and nations as well. Rohit's passion for financial literacy is evident in every page, and his ability to simplify complex strategies without losing their essence makes this book a must-read for anyone looking to achieve financial success. Congratulations, Rohit, on an excellent book. I now hand you all over to Shweta Punj, who is the editor of economic policy at Money Control. She will be in conversation with Rohit, and we will learn more about the book. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Rohit. I was just talking to Rohit before coming on stage, and I told him, I said, what a time, the timing for this book is it's so apt, because at this point, at Money Control, which is where I am, the number of people we see investing in equities has grown phenomenally. Everybody wants to be either a wealth creator or wants to be wealthy. Now, everyone has a unique relationship with money and wealth. As individuals, we, how we deal with money, what we feel about money varies from one person to another. Having said that, all of us do want to be rich, right? So Unlocking Wealth, Secrets to Getting Rich at Any Age. I think it's a fascinating title, and it's a fascinating book, which really also delves into, India's mindset. Traditionally, we have scorned upon, display of wealth or just being too wealthy. It's something that we've not been very kind about, and he deals with that in a chapter as well. So, Rohit, I'm looking forward to getting some secrets out of you on, how to get wealthy. And of course, if you are wealthy, how not to lose it. Because we've seen those stories too in India and across the world. But before we get into the details of the book, I'd like to just begin by asking you, what prompted you to write this book at this point?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very, very important question. First of all, thank you, Shweta, for doing this. And this is a very important topic for all of us, for all Indian. So there are several reasons for doing this, and there are several people behind this. First of all, I would like to acknowledge the publishers, because I think they are the ones who encouraged me to do this project, and they've been wanting me to do this project for some years. It was my procrastination only. So I think if the first acknowledgement it has to go to them. Now, what was my motivation behind doing this as at the start of the project, when they invited the concept from me, that they said, okay, Rohit, you first present the concept of the book. So that's where the answer to your question lies, that, what is my motivation behind writing this book? So Shweta, it's very simple, the work which I have done for last 25 years, the kind of data which I get to see, the kind of people which I meet, what I get to see of an emerging India is, I felt that it needs to be known by every Indian. And what I sincerely, my conviction is, based on that data and the people I meet, is that India in next 10 years of India could be India's best years in this entire century. And I'll explain you a bit of a maths behind it. So India, we know, is growing at about 6-7% GDP. If you add inflation to that, it will grow at about 11-12% nominal GDP every year. Now, there is a simple math behind it. If you compound the growth at about 11 to 12%, it becomes 3x in 10 years. Now, that is the average growth of the country. If our economy will become 3x, which means we have $4 trillion economy today, in 10 years time frame will become $12 trillion. If that's an average growth of the country, then businesses which are doing above average, they will become 4x. If they are performers, they'll become 5x. If they're outstanding performers, they'll become 6 or 7x. Now, that's a reality which is going to happen. So irrespective of the fact that anybody who's running a business, big or small, doesn't matter. If the business is being run well with a growth mindset, any business which is being run today in India, big or small, in 10 years time frame can become 5 to 6x. Now, that's a message I wanted to reach out to every Indian. Because this is the best time which for every Indian to have a growth mindset and go for wealth creation, again, doesn't matter. So that was the motivation behind it.
Wow, that's fantastic. I think this deserves a big round of applause. It's just fabulous because I grew up in the India of 70s and 80s where the wealth mindset, the businessmen, the wealth creators were, depicted in a very negative light in Bollywood, mostly. And I think it's only now that we are really respecting our wealth creators and job creators. And the sentiment is palpable across the country, actually. If you look at data and you see a lot of investors that are coming in to the equity markets or investing in very diverse financial instruments are also coming from tier 2, tier 3 towns. Some 23, 24-year-olds are actually making comparisons between, if I take up a job where I'll work for 9 to 10 hours or even 12 hours a day, I'd rather make that money just by trading. So that's also happening. So India is changing, and thank you so much for writing this book. Because our financial literacy still needs to grow. We've come a long way, but there's still a long way to go. I was fascinated by your references in the book on big billionaires, first generation billionaires that we've seen in India, whether it is a Nitin Kamath or whether it is a lot of entrepreneurs who've come up and who've built and generated great wealth in the last decade or so. What do you think has worked for them? What does your analysis say about what makes them or what distinguishes them as wealth creators?
Yeah, no, Shweta, that's a foundational question that you asked me about wealth creation, and I have covered that in various perspectives, nuances in different chapters. There's a chapter on hunger versus greed, purpose versus number, input versus output, and I'll try to give you a very summarized, concise answer towards that. See, other day also somebody was asking me that, which is the best, easiest way to create wealth or easiest way not to create wealth. So I told him, or whosoever were having a conversation, I can't recall, that the easiest way not to create wealth is chase wealth. So more you chase wealth, if wealth becomes your end goal, then harder it becomes to create, because then you're just chasing wealth. So if you see what was the common thread across all these wealth creators which you mentioned and I mentioned in the book is that for them wealth was just a byproduct. They were driven by the input, right? They wanted to either disrupt the existing, the scheme of things, or create an institution, or probably have simply a positive impact of their work. And in that process, what they ended up doing was they ended up adding value to the society. They were solving some problems. So if you solve some problem, the society is willing to pay you for it. And at the end of the day, if you see any business is basically, that's the definition of a business. A business, big or small, simple or complex, at the end of the day is solving some problem. And the society is willing to pay you for it. So these entrepreneurs, I've also spoken about, of course, from India, the house of Tatas and all, and Birlas and all that. And then, of course, Steve Jobs. What they were trying to do was, Steve Jobs, what he was trying to do? He was trying to make access to technology very seamless, irrespective of the age.
Right. So there is power of a disruptive idea, but then there is also power in scaling the idea, whether you talk about the Tata's group or you talk about Apple, right? So there was an idea that maybe Steve Jobs had, and then he has worked on building that. So, if you could just talk to us a little bit about the power of scaling and why is it that some businesses that start out well somewhere fizzle off, and some businesses grow and explode and become, big wealth generators for the country and for individuals?
So I think scaling is I think at the heart of wealth creation. Let us say there is a brilliant idea, and that brilliant idea is solving some very real complex problem for the world. But that brilliant idea is solving that complex problem of the world for only 10 people in a society. It is not going to lead to wealth creation, right? But let us say even if it's an above average idea, but it is solving a problem for 1 million people, it is going to lead to wealth creation, because what I just, I'll take you back to the definition of wealth is that a business is solving a problem and the society is willing to pay a price. So more people you solve the problem for, which is scaling, more cash flows you collect, more cash flows will lead to more wealth as a byproduct. So without scaling, howsoever brilliant your idea could be, will not lead to wealth creation. And in all these examples which you've read in the book, their underlying principle was that they were scaled ideas, right?
Right, absolutely. Okay, so now, I want to ask you a question that I think might be on everyone's minds. That is, how does one generate wealth, create wealth in the India of today? What are you betting on at this point? You said the next decade is going to be the best for India. So how do we make the most of it?
Yeah, so this is something which is a very, I would say, very contemporary question, very topical, and everybody would like to know the answer for that. So first of all, see, if you look at next 10 years, you look at what is India of today. So India of today is, I think, one of the most youthful countries of the world. 2/3 of our population is, below 35 years of age, right? And this is a population, a lot of them are internet, kids, they have grown up in the internet age, and they are basically driven by consumption. So when India of next 10 years, as I see, is an India of driven by consumption. So when consumption happens, which means if I have 1.4 billion Indians, when they start consuming, that creates a huge market. I'll just give you a simple example. Let us say, just take a guess, what would be the size of the chai economy in India? How much worth of chai would be selling in India every day, right? So any guess you would like to take?
No, I think I'll pass.
Okay. So it's very simple mathematics, which I came to my mind. 3 months back, there was Lok Sabha elections which were happening, and some data point came that 97 crore Indians are in the voters list. That simply tells you that there are 97 crore adult Indians above 18, and then everybody would not have registered. Like some of the Gen Z, they are least interested in politics. They wouldn't have registered. So at least I thought, okay, there are 100 crore adult Indians. Now, if 100 crore adult Indians decide every day to wake up and have a cup of chai, and let us say everybody doesn't live on Golf Course Road, right? They will pay a 20 rupee for a chai, and 100 crore Indians, pay 20 rupees for a chai. It's a 2,000 crore economy every day. And this is just a humble 20 crore teacup. Then we have people, like us in this room, which go to Starbucks also, which will also go to Chayos and pay 129 rupees for a cup of chai. So my guess is that every day in India, chai हमारी 3-4 हज़ार करोड़ की बिकती होगी. So that is the scale. So as I see India, to answer your question, that next 10 years, I think the market expansion is going to happen driven by consumption. I've just given you an example of a humble cup of tea, but there are umpteen products which Indians are going to consume as their incomes are growing, their ability to spend more is growing. Our per capita income is already now touched, crossed 2,600 per person, USD per person. So when that happens, then there's more surplus disposable income which citizens can spend on consumption. And when that happens, it creates a demand for multiple industries. So it is going to lead to a market expansion. Whichever business you are today, like your business, my business, businesses of the friends which are there in the room, they are going to go through an expansion. And there lies an opportunity to create wealth that all of us should just be thinking of scaling our businesses. Doesn't matter where we are today. We have to be driven by where we can be in 10 years time frame. Can I take my business 5x, 6 years in 10 years time frame? That's the only way all of us should be thinking in India.
Okay, but what if you don't have a business? What if you are a salaried employee? What's the advice that you give to your clients that we're going to get for free now on how to invest?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me this question because people I work with, they're also part of this here. So my simple answer to that is, see, out of my 30 years of career, 7 years I worked in organizations, and then the rest years have been an entrepreneur. So when I was working, Shweta, I never worked as an employee. I always thought I worked like an entrepreneur because if work has been given to me, I thought I have to add value to my immediate senior, because it is, if I deliver on time, I deliver before time I deliver well, I'm adding value to his life because he also has answerable, accountable to his bosses. Then if I'm adding value to the organization, then I'm eventually getting back. So always work like an entrepreneur. So I think doesn't matter whether you're running a business or not running a business, even if you're working, work like an intrapreneur. Because if you're helping your organization to scale, you're adding serious value to your organization, and believe you me, you will become insanely invaluable to that organization. And that process of your value going up, you will end up creating wealth. There is a compounding effect there also. In my organization, there are people who've been with us for the last 20 years. And they are brilliant case studies of compounding.
Right. So let's talk about compounding, and let's talk about, different asset classes that you are betting on at this point in the next decade that you said that are going to be the big years for India. Where are you placing your bets?
So, I would place my bets only on growth asset classes because, as India's economy will grow, as I've explained the maths to you, then it will get mirrored in the growth asset classes. And at the top of the pyramid, amongst the growth asset classes is equities. So equities, basically, how they grow is basically they mirror the growth of profits of businesses. So when an economy grows, let us say our economy will grow at 11%, 12%. Well-managed businesses with growth mindset, they will grow at about 15, 20%. So if their profits are growing at 15 to 20%, then that is eventually going to be captured and mirrored in their share prices. So over a 10-year cycle, eventually, we have seen Titan is a great story. They've compounded God knows how many times in the last 20 years. So equities is an asset class where somebody who wants to create wealth, I would like to put my bets, provided you have the risk-taking appetite. And then, of course, there are other asset classes also, which is as India's economy will grow, real estate will also grow. And, of course, real estate will grow lesser, than equities, but it will also grow. And if somebody understands that, somebody wants to participate that's another one. But my sense is, my personal choice is I would put all my growth bets into equity as an asset class.
Okay. In your book, you also delve into, how people end up losing wealth. There are those who inherit wealth, and instead of becoming wealth creators, they go back to, just starting from scratch all over again. So what are the pitfalls there? Why is it that some soar and some grow? And why is it that some fall so badly?
Yeah, so I think, this is a question which is coming from the third section of the book. The first section talks about, why wealth is important, and both for individuals and societies and nations. The second section of the book talks about, what are the rules or the laws of creating wealth. And the third section is now you become a wealth creator. You have wealth. And then now what you need to do to safeguard it. So I think that's where, from those chapters, the answer to your question lies. So what happens, I've given case studies like Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson used to have a net worth of 300 million. And he went broke. He was bankrupt. And, a situation came that in Las Vegas, he had to do exhibition matches to survive, to make a living. And what happens there is that, maybe somebody, a celebrity like that, I've also given an example of, Boris Becker, that you invite lifestyle inflation into your lives. That, probably your expenses, they become far more than what your wealth could afford. You basically, to maintain maybe your profile or maybe your aura or so to say as a celebrity, you invite lifestyle inflation into your lives. And because of that, you don't realize that your wealth, if your expense, I've also shown in some charts, that if your expenses are higher than your income, then eventually a stage will come where you'll become bankrupt. Because what is the equation of wealth? Equation of wealth is very simple. The ancient age-old equation of wealth is profit is equal to income minus expenses. It applies to our personal lives also. So wealth is equal to profit, right? And if our income is less than our expenses, then what is happening is we start eating into our reserves. And a stage will come at some point in time in our life where we'll end up consuming our entire wealth and we'll end up losing wealth. So this is one way. And then the another reason is that you'd start taking excessive risk. Right? Because then greed takes over, wealth creation, and you just want to continue to chase. It's like, it becomes very addictive. So you start taking risk without knowing the implications of the risk that you're taking. And then eventually one day you realize that it has got an adverse impact on the wealth which you have. So these are some of the reasons because of which.
So what's the risk/stability ratio according to you? Because risk is also important to generate wealth. So how do you draw the line if you were to allocate a portfolio? what's the percentage that you'll put into risky assets versus the stable assets?
Yeah. So see, logically, this is an absolutely correct question, but the answer is cannot be universal for everybody, because see, it's a balance between your protection needs and your growth needs. So first of all, I think the method in the madness for this is, first of all, you figure out how much wealth you need to meet your protection goals. What are your protection goals at various stages of your life? Your immediate, your most core protection goal is you need to build a retirement corpus. Right? And why you need to build a retirement corpus, I keep on telling this to all my friends, that all of us are now living longer. When I started, my career in wealth management, financial planning, we used to take 75 years of life expectancy. Now we take 90 years, right? So your retirement corpus is extremely important as a life goal, as your protection goal. You need to build enough corpus to fund it, your quality of life, the way you live there till age 90. Then, of course, there are other needs, which is around family. You will have events in the family, education of the kids. Depends what life stage you are. If you are younger, probably you need to also acquire assets like a home or automobiles and stuff like that. So first you figure out, put very simply, what is the demand for your wealth? How much wealth do you need to live the life the way you want to live? You first protect that. After that, if something is left, simple principle is just put it to compounding, growth. Because you are not going to need that wealth, because now you've taken care of your protection needs. So that equation, that balance, that mix will vary from one individual to another individual depending upon your life stage, your financial situation. Very importantly, a list of your aspirations. More aspirations you have, more wealth you'll need.
When you speak to your clients, what is the sense that you get of their aspirations? And since you have been in this industry for such a long time, if you could map the changing aspirations for us, from the time when you started 20 years ago to now, how are Indians dreaming, and what are they really aspiring for when it comes to wealth creation?
Yeah, wonderful question. Shweta, you asked me, and I have seen this, the affluence effect in India last 20 years, India change, India's society change. I think Indians, they want to live their life, right? So if you could travel, travel internationally, especially Europe and all, they don't like Chinese tourists, because they will come, they'll haggle a lot. But they love Indian tourists because they know, and they tell this, because Indians, they come and they spend. They will not negotiate, they'll not bargain. So I think people, as they're getting more and more wealth, they've started, living their life. They want to move to bigger homes. They want to move to, areas where they want to live, better addresses, better locations. Education is in the top criteria. They want to give best education to their children. Healthcare is number 2. They want to take, if they can afford, they want to have access to the best healthcare facilities, not only in India, but across the world. Third thing is on travel. So I've seen people really travel a lot, and that's probably their definition of living a good life, because when you travel, you also get to see the world. It's not just leisure. Travel is a great source of education. These are some of the things which I have seen, but at the same time, while they are living their life, I've also seen, thanks to our good old values of thriftiness, they also don't want to throw money. They're also very good accumulators. They also want to protect their wealth. So I think it's a very nice combination I've seen across, wealthy families. While they've, raised their lifestyle standards, they also just don't want to throw money for the sake of it.
In your book, you speak about you can start at any age. But what is the right age? I think probably all of us here have passed that age. But what is really the right age when, one should start thinking about investing? And I personally think this should be part of school curriculums, but it's still not there. We're still debating very disconnected issues from the real life when it comes to curriculum planning. But so what is the right age? When should you start investing? And and then tell us a little bit more about why it's never too late to start investing.
Yeah, and thanks for asking that question, Shweta. And I'll also explain why we had that title at any age and why is it relevant at any age. Of course, coming to first part of your question is when should you start investing? So I would say the answer to that is as early as one can. Right? So I'll give you my own example. I studied a school called Modern School, and I was in scholarship. So Government of India used to give me, that time I was in boarding, 30 rupees a month pocket money because other kids also used to get it. So the government didn't want me to feel, differentiated. So I also used to get pocket money of 30 rupees a month from government. Now there was a SBI extension counter there. Even those times, 10 rupees I used to spend, 20 rupees I used to deposit there. And when I passed from school, it was a good 450 rupees princely sum. So you start as soon as possible. You will remember there is an SBI extension counter in the school. So I think start as early as possible, because it's not about creating wealth, it's about developing a good habit early in your life. Because when you are in your 40s and 50s, when you really created wealth and you are a habitual saver, you will compound your wealth far more, because that has become part of your personality. So I think brief answer to your question is that start accumulating wealth as early as you can. Bring that good habit into your life as early as you can, because it will pay you dividends when you are in money later on in life, because you become a habitual accumulator. That's one. And then I think the second part of the question, I'm just trying to remember, why at any age? Yeah. So I'll just give a shared experience. I met somebody yesterday. You were talking about camellias across the road, and he lives in camellias. And, extremely successful individual, extremely gentle human being, extremely grounded and, very humble. And he read my book. First started off, Rohit, what an excellent book you've written. And he's a wealth creator. He sold his company for many, many hundreds crores. And he says, every day when I'm sleeping, this book lies next to my bed. I read it for 10, 20 minutes before sleeping. And he's a wealth creator. He sits on loads of wealth. And why he's reading it? Because at that stage, when you are a wealth creator, even a harder and a most important part is how not to lose your wealth. Right? So even if you are 60 years old, 70 years old, like this is a legacy which you've created, which is going to last God knows how many generations. Right? So you need to have a wealth mindset at any age, whether you are 20-year-old or whether you are 70-year-old. The reasons could be very different. But you need to value wealth, right? And then only wealth will stay in your life. So that's the reason it is at any age.
So let's take that conversation forward on how do you preserve your wealth? What did this specific entrepreneur share with you on what his next steps are going to be?
Yeah, so I've explained in the book also, and I think I can give you a very simple answer for that. See, there's a big difference between when you are on a journey to be a wealth creator and when you are a wealth owner. Because when you become a wealth owner, then there are two emotions, which are connected with wealth, which you invite into your life, which is the emotions of greed and fear. Because now you are a wealth owner, so now you want to multiply it even more, you want to get even more and more richer. At the same time, now you have something to lose in life. So the fear catches up with you. So I think the best way to stay rich is to make sure that you protect yourself from these emotions of greed and fear. Neither do you take excessive risk with your wealth, that you are a rich and you can take so much of risk and you just, start taking excessive risk. At the same time, don't be fearful. Because if you're fearful, then you'll not be able to do anything. You'll just put your money, in a bank deposit, and it's not even going to keep pace with inflation. So I think at that point in time, you have to make sure that you continue to take rational decision and not emotional decisions. Right? And that's the only way you will be able to protect your wealth.
Okay. Who are your favorite wealth generators and wealth protectors in India and across the world?
So I think there are many, many inspiring examples, Shweta, across the world. Then you come, I think my big inspiration is Steve Jobs. Because, Steve Jobs actually was driven by the dream of making tech accessible to everybody on the planet. Right? The good old days, there used to be big computers and only somebody, even I used to find it very difficult as a student to access, computers, the complex computer languages and all. He simply made, product like an iPod. He made music accessible to everybody. He made a product like an iPad. He made, even our parents can use it very, very seamlessly. And he solved a massive problem for the whole global community. And I think that's a huge inspiration. And he built Apple with that vision, that I want to make it a very accessible products, very accessible technology. Within India, of course, I have the privilege, I think it's a very difficult and hard answer, but I've come across very, very inspiring wealth creators. But one person I would like to mention is Mr. Ashok Soota, who worked with Wipro, and he started his first venture, Mindtree, when I think he was 68 years old. right? And then the company went for IPO, and then he's 81 years now. And then he's become a serial entrepreneur, he exited from Mindtree at the IPO time and started his second venture called the Happiest Minds. And he's single, he doesn't have a family, and he still remains a very passionate wealth creator. If you ask him at the age of 81, why does he create wealth? He says that, right, wealth creation goal is limitless, because more I create, more I'm leaving it behind for a prosperous wealth. Because he's just, created institutions which are educating bottom sections of the society. He says if you create wealth for that goal, then how much wealth you should create, it's a limitless goal. Right? Because wealth is, at the end of the day, is a God's own resource to run this planet. And I think he's, amongst so many which I'm very privileged to learn from, he's one of the very inspiring wealth creators that I know of.
Okay. You also speak about depreciating and appreciating assets. Tell us a little bit more about that, because when it comes to investments, we do end up investing in assets that might not give us the returns that one would hope for.
Yeah, so I've explained that there. And appreciating assets are growth assets like, equities, real estate, gold. They appreciate. You invest today, 10 years down the line. I've also mentioned their growth rates on actual data. Then depreciating assets are the one which lose value. A simple example I'll give you. You buy land, you build house on it. So within that, land is an appreciating asset. The house is a depreciating asset. When you go and sell your house 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line, even 5 years down the line, 3 years down the line, nobody is going to pay you for how much you spent on building the house. Nobody is going to pay you how much you spent on interiors of the house. So that's a depreciating asset. Gold you buy, but the design on the jewelry, so gold is an appreciating asset, but the design of the jewelry is a depreciating asset. So when you go back to the same jeweler and he's going to do a buyback, he's going to pay you a zilch for the design that you paid when you bought. But he'll definitely buy back the gold at the prevailing price. So I think if you're deploying your assets more and more into appreciating assets, you're growing your wealth, and vice versa. If you're putting into depreciating assets, cars is another great example. Right? Of course, you should have cars. We all have it. That makes our life comfortable. But if you have it, more as wants beyond your needs, then eventually you buy a car today. The moment you come out of the showroom, it's down by about 30-odd%. And eventually, in our planning calculations, we take a 30% salvage value after 6-7 years of usage. So 70% of the value has been depreciated. So depreciating assets, you should deploy your
How
wealth.
about phones?
Yeah, phones are also depreciating assets.
So you need to have this chat for Gen Z. because that's where they're spending their money on.
Do you think I don't have it at my home? I keep having that and I keep learning from it. And what am I missing? And yes. So see, these depreciating assets, they have a value. They have a meaning. And that is what they address the need. Phones, for example. It's not just a phone. It is also your camera. It is also your access to music. It is also your access to news and content. It is the whole world into one device. So you need to really, really invest in a good device to live a good life. But if you're changing your phones every time iPhone launches a new model, at least I don't relate with it. And I don't have an issue with people who do it, but I don't relate with it.
All right. Okay, well, I do hope that you have a lot more talks about whatever you've suggested in this book, because I think there's so much that one can learn from this. I'll open up the floor for some audience questions. Anyone here who has a question for Rohit that I haven't asked? I think all your friends have already made their wealth. So.
Yeah, they're all wealthy. People in this room, they would be amongst the top 1% of India.
So there, but I do see a hand up there, yeah.
Hey Rohit, this is Shishir. You mentioned equities as your most aggressive advice over there, but just a thought about how much of that equity, which we've seen over the last few years, is inflationary versus actually fundamentally created value?
Yeah, good question, Shishir. So I think, first of all, inflation is part of an equity's growth. But let us say a company which is in business, which sells a product which was for 100 rupees 10 years back, it sells at 150 today, right? Because of inflation. Because of that, its revenues are growing. So inflations do contribute to the growth of the businesses, the revenues of companies. right? So that's the reason when I said in my in my mathematical equation that when India's GDP is growing at 6-7%, I also added inflation to it about 5%. So total economy grows at 11%.
No, my question is more about the fact that it's just sheer money pumping into the equity market, pumping it up, not cost inflation. Just the fact that money is coming in and that's raising stock price.
Okay, so I think that's a more a near-term phenomenon. But what is happening is, I think, let's pick up some real numbers. And Shweta, I think the work that you do, you know these numbers. Every month now we get about 24,000 crores as SIPs into stock markets. Now this is a structural shift which has happened into the Indian markets, into Indian economy, right? 15 years back, Indians used to save. The most popular instrument used to be the recurring deposit in a post office. And I used to say the day this will get replaced by SIP, India will not be dependent on foreign money, and which is happening today. And I'll give you a simple example. When I play golf across the road, one day my caddy asked me, because he knows what I do, that please sir, tell me which are the 2 mutual funds I want to start an SIP. Now the guy who earns 25,000-30,000 rupees a month and he wants to invest, whatever he can. Now if that segment has started, to use SIPs or invest into equities on a monthly basis, it is happening, it's massive, it's across India, right? And that's the reason, irrespective of the geopolitical events which are happening, first in the Ukraine war, then in the West Asia, and very recently China announced some packages for their markets. You've seen Indian markets have just corrected by 5%. Had it happened 10 years back, this correction would not have been less than 10%. And with foreign money still not coming in because Indian valuation on a higher side, I think Indian markets have come of age. So it's not hot money, which is domestic money. It's a real long-term savings of hardworking Indians, not just at the top end of the pyramid, middle and the bottom of the pyramid. That is not going to go away. So it is very, very real. So it's really, really long-term, and that's the reason I feel this is one of the reasons that next 10 years could be India's best years in this entire century.
I hope that answers your question. Yeah. Yes, the gentleman over there.
Hey Rohit, I come from a generation, where my dad was all into PPS, FDs, and then I came in and, the work started. And then gradually, somebody taught us to do mutual funds, somebody told us buy this equity, and we kept on doing it, burning cash, losing money here and there. Now we reached a stage, where courtesy Google and the phones we just spoke about, there's a deluge of information. Small caps are good, large caps are not moving. This is not happening. And we are chasing every. So my whole dilemma today lies in wealth creation is that how do I manage my risk? Because I don't understand myself, and I have so many people, including the online ecosystem, educating me. So how do I save myself and really still, walk the road, which is gradually the long term?
No, thank you, Kapil. You asked this because this is a fundamental question which should be on the mind of every Indian. Because if you're getting into money, we are becoming long-term savers. We need to know the answer to this. Now, my simple answer to this is please find a good financial advisor. In fact, that's the last chapter of the book.
Money control.
So now you know why Shweta is here. So let me compare this, a metaphor with the healthcare industry, right? There's a WhatsApp university and so much of stuff which flows through WhatsApp university on YouTube. Will you take chance with your body or your health basis on what's available on WhatsApp? You will go. You will like to, you gather knowledge, but you like to take a decision after consulting a qualified doctor whom you trust. How can you take a decision on the basis of that with your own wealth? Your wealth is, it's a wealthcare industry, right? So you need to go and find a financial doctor whom you trust, whom you respect. You can gather as much data as possible from, today internet has democratized access to knowledge. That's the best thing which has happened in the last 10, 15 years. But when it comes to decision making, I think you should find a good financial advisor whom you can trust, whom you can respect. And then that financial advisor should be like your financial counselor for life, just like your family doctor. That's the way.
So when it comes to your clients, what keeps you awake at night?
Frankly, I have a very good night's sleep for 7 hours, and nothing keeps me awake. For the simple reason is credit to our clients. They themselves are very sorted people. Not only are they wealth creators, but they take rational decisions. And when we tell them what to do, they listen to us and they follow that. And when market falls, they are not making panic calls to us. When markets are rising, they are not making calls to us. They want to invest more. So I think the way, perhaps I'm talking about myself, is the way we work is in a very disciplined, process-oriented manner, where we help our clients, take good care of their life earnings, their legacy, in a very systematic manner. So there is, whether a war is happening or an event is happening, it really doesn't really brings any fire into our lives, because the way I think we do our profession is that our clients are trusting us. Right? So we need to do our homework pretty well, because they are banking on our judgment. So first of all, we will not recommend anything in which, first of all, we are not sure putting our own money. Right? And if that recommendation we are not giving to clients, that gives us a good night's sleep. That we have not given any recommendation to our clients which makes us to worry about what we have told them.
But has it ever happened that your advice has led to your client losing a lot of money?
Thankfully not. It's been 22 years, but thankfully not, and we've not got any challenging experience on that. In fact, Shweta, there are no cases, because I do what I do for the last 22 years. There are several families today, we work on the third generation. So I started working with the first generation, then second and third, which means the families are able to trust you. Across their generation, there is something right you're doing. I'm not saying something brilliant we're doing. I don't claim that.
So what are the basic fundamental principles of investing that you follow when you recommend something to your clients?
So basic, our approach to telling clients is that, we are long-term players. Compound your wealth, not trade your wealth. Right? Recently a data has come which SEBI has been very concerned, and as all Indians, we should be concerned also, that you would know that 93% of the Indians are losing money in trading, in options trading and derivatives trading. So when you start trading, that's a short way to wealth erosion, losses, because it's a zero-sum game. I'll give you my own example. When I used to be in a bank, I used to buy stocks and all because I'm very excited. I was young, 25 years back, and I realized 7 out of 10 trades which you have done and you succeeded in that gives you a high, that you start going and doing the other 3 trades. But the amount of loss which you'll make in those 3 trades would be more than those 7 in which you made money. So it's a zero-sum game. So I even shut my demat account. I don't do trading. So what our approach to investing is compounding. See, even if you put your money to work at 15% per annum in good quality businesses in India which are doing a good job, that money will become 4x in 10 years and 33x in 25 years.
The blue chip stocks.
Blue chip stocks and even mid-cap stocks, which will become tomorrow's blue chip, run by good quality managements, ethical managements. Their market size is growing, and they have pricing power. There are many good businesses, which are coming up on the horizon. I don't want to name any one of them at this forum, but there are many good businesses which are coming up.
All right. Sure.
So my question is, when I started investing, was very privileged to be part of the wealth making ecosystem, and I had a lot of knowledge from my dad and people around me. But if there's somebody who is not that privileged, what do you suggest even if they want to do a small SIP? Should it be a risk-taking strategy or a safe strategy?
So, Shreya, I see that you're very young, so you have the privilege and the advantage of time being on side, more than, people like in my age bracket. You should simply just do as SIP. Maybe if you're doing in a well-managed, a basket of, good, actively managed fund from good fund houses, large cap companies, just commit your savings.